Mark Byers with us from the PIAA here on the John Mendola Show. We're driven by McCarthy Tire. And Mark, always a pleasure to talk with you. Go back a long ways of
Sure.
meeting with you and getting to know a little bit about you and what you do with the PIAA. And it's been a pleasure building that relationship with you. But it's been a year like no other. You guys have had your challenges. The student athletes have had challenges. Each individual district across the state has had their challenges, but somehow here we are in 2021. We're all fighting through it. And let's talk about the winter sports season right now. Things on the PIAA level is you guys are basically putting it in the local community's hands / the local district. So we're in District 2 here in northeastern Pennsylvania. And, some teams are hoping to get going here in the next week or so.
Sure, there's certain areas that'll open as early as this Friday. Those that had some practices take place before the holiday break and before the shutdown. So we're excited about having student athletes competing on the basketball court, on the wrestling mat, and in the swimming pools this weekend. Others, because this certainly is a different situation in different areas of the state, still have their preseason practices to get in. But we're hopeful that the vast majority are moving forward here as we get through this month.
A lot of protocols, a lot of things in place. You guys, having those conversations with people on the state level, with the, medical personnel, with, your own people that are in charge of each individual district. And then you got to have a pulse on student athletes and coaches as well. And everybody trying to do the right thing. Some people have one extreme to the other, but in the end, there are things that need to be in place, guidelines that need to happen, and talk about, the fine-tooth comb stuff to make sure you guys are doing everything you possibly could to think of every possible scenario.
Yeah, I think it first and foremost has started with relying on the information that has come out from state government, from the Department of Health. And then our process has been going back to the fall and then moving into the winter. We've met with each of our steering committees, sports-specific steering committees, developed guidelines for each of those sports. Some of them, are pretty straightforward. A sport like golf, there were some changes that were already in effect because we've been playing golf in Pennsylvania since late May. Where other areas or other sports, we've developed guidelines for those fall sports, for winter sports that are a little different. Using wrestling as an example, there's recommendations that a school can provide for an intermission as a way of working through the occupancy limits, having half their wrestlers come in for the competition, much like college where they have an intermission, having that break, clearing out the facility, cleaning the facility, and then bring in the other half of the weights to come in. So that's the detail I think that has been worthwhile working with each of those steering committees. And then that information is shared with our Sport Medicine Advisory Committee. They've certainly played an active role throughout the course of the fall in making sure that the information we're putting out to the membership and those guidelines is sound. And then ultimately the board of directors approves those items for distribution. So there's a wide range of individuals. It's certainly not the individuals in this office that are putting those things together in totality. There's literally hundreds of individuals that have had a hand in that.
I'm sure there's some level of stress on your guys' end, knowing like, okay, we're dealing with people's lives here, whether it's an official, student athlete, a parent, somebody comes in close contact. But again, kind of going through the checklist of doing everything we possibly can. And in the end, the student athlete could say, hey, I'm not going to participate because I'm too afraid of it. Ultimately, they do have the final say.
Sure. And I think that's what everyone has advocated for from our original shutdown coming into the summer, is allowing for those individualized decision making, whether that's a mom and dad making that decision with their student athlete, whether that's an official making that decision, or whether that's the local school determining what's in the best interest of their community because of what is taking place in their community. So having that local control has allowed different decisions to be made across the state in the best interest. I would say the one thing that makes us different is I'm adamant that the safest place our kids can be is in a school setting. Because the one thing that all of us in the educational business are involved in is following rules. So whether they're in the classroom and following the COVID procedures on a day in and day out, or whether they're coming in after school for those after school activities, there are procedures in place that individuals are going to follow, because there's certainly a chain of command going the whole way up to that locally elected school board to make sure that they're followed. And I think that's just, it's not a little different. It's a lot different than what individuals may experience away from the school setting.
So, now it's indoor sports. We're in the winter, so indoor, or basketball, we're wrestling, we're swimming. We're not sure, we all think we have a good handle, the people that are in position to say, okay, this is the way we think things are going to go. But we'll know a little bit more in the next couple of weeks as to what direction we're going. And again, every district will be a little bit different, but I think we're going to find out if there are some cases. And again, there's things in place that you guys are going to be on shutdown for X amount of days or weeks. But I think we're all getting a little bit, I don't want to say better at this, but I guess we're trying to educate ourselves and be more understanding. And in the next couple of weeks, we'll have more of a feel of where we're going with winter sports.
Yeah, and I think what we learned in the fall, John, is providing for the longest amount of time to handle the hiccups, to handle the shutdowns, but still allow for competition to exist, takes the pressure off of trying to put these seasons into 4 or 5 week segments, where if your school or your school team is shut down for 10 days, it's difficult to overcome that. By us starting as early as this Friday, with the board taking the action that they did to allow competition to exist the whole way until March 27th, by pushing back team wrestling until after the individual tournament, that's expanded the length of the regular season. Also consolidating our brackets in basketball down to just district champions for the state tournament. That's taken the pressure off of districts needing to get done. It's giving them an additional week, in some cases a week and a half, to contest their events. And that leaves extra room for regular season competition, which affects the vast majority of our athletes, more so than postseason. So giving them the opportunity to have that expanded postseason gives us the best opportunity to succeed this winter.
And forward thinking, I'm sure there's already been conversations about the spring. Talk about just getting together with some of the board members, the people amongst the PIAA administration there, to say, okay, we're having these conversations on a constant basis to make sure that we have a plan in place going forward.
Sure. In your backyard, we're fortunate enough that our president is Frank Majikis, the District 2 chairman. And what a year to become president of the organization. Taking over in July, I'm certain whenever he was giving consideration last year to taking over as president, being elected president, none of us thought this was going to happen. But under Frank's tenure, he's been forward thinking and making sure that the board isn't just reactionary to what's going on, but is proactive in attempting to meeting as often as we have. I've mentioned that in a traditional year, we meet 6 times. We've already met 10 times, and that doesn't count work sessions, strategic planning sessions of the district chairs that provide more information for the board of directors. So they certainly have been proactive throughout the course of the fall and trying to communicate as best we can with member schools with an ever-changing environment.
So as much as we know that student athletes are going to be competing hopefully on the court or the mat or in the pool, we're still a little unsure. And again, I think this goes back to each individual district about the fans. So, some places will have some fans. I know there's one particular district that has said, listen, we're going to allow 2 parents for the away team, 2 parents for the home team coming in. That sounds pretty reasonable to me, as opposed to nobody coming in, or we're going to fill the gym and, we might have a little bit of a dangerous situation. So each district is going to handle it differently.
Well, I think there is a common theme, though, in the current occupancy order is going to limit the total number of individuals in a facility. So a school taking the stance that we're just going to load up the facility and have at it isn't going to happen. As I mentioned earlier, our schools are fantastic at making sure that they're adhering to these policies. So looking at the vast majority of high school facilities in an indoor setting, 1,000 to 2,000 individuals, if that's your occupancy, you can only let in 10%, and that includes all told. So it's going to have to be an individualized school setting because our facilities are so different. You take, and I know you're familiar with a place like Martz Hall, that obviously is going to allow more opportunity for individuals because they seat over 4,000 people. But that also takes them into the 2001 to 10,000 under the order only allows 5%. So the idea is that we're never going to be in a situation where we're overselling facilities, but we do think it is important as best we can to accommodate moms and dads the opportunity to see their kids, because this is a 4-year window, and that goes away for many of them at the end of this season because they're seniors.
Lots of considerations, lots to think about. Mark Byers, we appreciate your time, and we hope the best in health and safety to your family, and of course to all our student athletes here in the state of Pennsylvania.
Thank you for the opportunity, John.